Hey everyone, me Kevin here. So let's talk about debate number one. Debate number one was a bit problematic. In fact, it was so problematic, I decided to wear a Spade t-shirt for all of the mudslinging that was going on. And in my opinion, look, debates are great opportunities to understand what each candidate is going to do for our country and going to do for us. But this debate outcome was a bit blurry, leaving some on Twitter saying if you're wondering who won, it was anyone who didn't watch. And it was kind of difficult to get to the bottom lines of the content because of all the bickering, interrupting, and mudslinging. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to talk about the facts of the debate, the facts of what's actually happening, and then I'm also going to talk about what each candidate could have done differently to strengthen their argument or where maybe they had some weaknesses in their arguments. And that's not me taking sides, it's simply me looking at a fact and saying, something may not have been as clear as it should have been. And this is exactly how we're going to start. But first, I have to remind you to get 2 completely free stocks with the stock trading platform Webull. If you deposit $100 with them, it's your $100, they will give you 2 free stocks worth up to $1,600. You could also get life insurance in as little as 5 minutes, which you could Android Pay or Apple Pay for. Let's get started. From the beginning, Biden said that we need to fight the virus and we need support from the government before we reopen everything. However, he did not use the word stimulus. And Biden did not go as hard on government support as he probably should have for the case of the left. If Biden was going to say, let's slow the reopening, then this would have been the perfect opportunity to talk about PPP loans, stimulus checks, unemployment pay, support for renters, support for housing. These would have been excellent opportunities to talk about this, especially when over 76% of the United States population supports the government passing another $2 trillion stimulus package. Unfortunately, when Biden was talking about slowing the reopening, Biden, I believe, misspoke and said that the government needs to provide PPE and medical supplies. It seemed like he wanted to talk about the government needs to be here to provide PPP, Paycheck Protection Program loans, which is a form of stimulus, and medical supplies. This would have really easily opened the door for him to talk about stimulus, but he did not. And because Biden did not make that point clear, a lot of viewers left the debate hearing Biden does not want to reopen or wants to reopen slowly, and Trump wants to reopen. Had one of them said, we want to reopen with stimulus, they would have probably been able to do better. But neither of them mentioned stimulus. Biden also tried making the conclusion that Trump only cares about himself and gets afraid or got afraid in an example where a reporter got too close to Trump. And Biden was sort of suggesting that Trump was trying to get the reporter to back away without putting his mask on. And Biden was trying to make an argument that wearing masks is a good thing. But Biden didn't finish his thought. And unfortunately, that left that entire point dead. Biden did tell us that he is going to remove the 2017 Trump tax cuts, and he's going to raise the corporate tax rate to 28% to ensure that corporations pay taxes, even those that say they lose money. He'll also expand Obamacare for those who are poorer, but he'll ensure that everybody still has the right to a private option, and believes the people have a say in who the next Supreme Court justice should be, and that Trump should wait. Now, I was personally surprised because just looking at this from the point of view that Biden's obviously on the left, I mean, he defined himself as being the left. I'm surprised that it seemed like Biden did not read the entire New York Times report on Trump's taxes. Now, this isn't to say you should like the New York Times or not, but if you're gonna be a Democratic Party member, you probably ought to have read the full report because it would have been easy ammunition for Biden to talk about Ivanka Trump as a consultant, Trump writing off his hair and personal residences, and the ballooning expenses and losses at some of his hotels. Now, we don't know if some of those things are true, but that would have been easy things for Biden to bring up. But Biden didn't bring that up. Instead, Biden used the tax talk as a moment to say that Biden is going to end the tax loopholes that exist that Trump took advantage of, which kind of implied that Biden thinks what Trump did was within the law, which those on the left say what Trump did was not within the law, that Trump is a tax evader, and those on the right say that Trump took advantage of legal options. And so I'm kind of surprised here that Biden basically sided with the right, given that he's a Democratic candidate. On the Supreme Court, Biden believes the next nominee should be decided by the president and letting the people decide. We kind of mentioned that already. Trump says he won the election for 4 years and not 3 years, and therefore Trump has the right to select a Supreme Court nominee. A big issue came up when the future of women's rights came up. Biden says that Roe v. Wade is on the ballot with the court. Trump rebutted this and said, "You don't know Judge Barrett's views on Roe v. Wade, and that is not on the ballot. That is not an issue that's in the courts right now." Well, this is me coming in with outside information. In 2017, thanks to NPR, we got an answer. Judge Barrett said during her confirmation hearing to be a different judge, "I don't think," this is a quote, "I don't think the core cases, Roe's core holding that, women have a right to an abortion, I don't think that would change. But I think the question of whether people can get very late-term abortions, how many restrictions can be put on clinics, I think that would change." Biden held his composure during the debate, though I will say I worry that actually held him back. Biden could have been stronger in poking back at Trump, asking more direct questions about Trump's plans for America or attacking Trump more directly going forward, digging into Trump's past and casting a future picture of what the next 4 years might look like under Trump. Instead, Biden mostly held to himself, it seemed. There were times where Biden did attack Trump, especially Trump's handling of the pandemic, saying that in Trump's recession, calling this recession from the pandemic Trump's recession, that more people died under Trump than would have under Biden. Trump responds to this by saying that he, as in Trump, has done more than Biden could ever do or would have been able to do. Honestly, it was arguments like these that made the debate a bit frustrating. They were sort of debating hypotheticals and railed each other over these hypotheticals and hating on the other person rather than actually talking about what their real plans were. Chris Wallace asked Trump a few pointed questions like, "Did you pay $750 in federal income taxes?" Chris Wallace asked that question twice. Did you pay $750 in federal income taxes in 2016? Trump dodged this question twice by saying he paid millions and pays millions of dollars in taxes, not directly answering the question. And the discussion really ended here on taxes. Biden did not push harder on taxes. He kind of gave Trump an easy pass here. Trump made a strong comparison to himself and Biden on energy. Trump was asked why Trump eliminated certain minimum fuel efficiency standards. Trump said that he believed that those fuel efficiency standards actually increased the cost of cars too much, making cars unaffordable. And without these standards, cars actually become cheaper, allowing people to buy newer cars, which newer cars are much better than cars that are 10 years old or older. And he slammed Biden for expensive plans and wanting a Green New Deal. Now, Biden says he doesn't want a Green New Deal. Instead, he wants the Biden plan. This is heavily debated since Biden references the Green New Deal on his website, but the point is Biden does want to focus on what he calls self-sustaining energy changes that would actually pay for themselves, focusing on energy credits for renewables, electric cars, and energy-efficient homes, while preventing the building or increasing of oil and fossil fuel infrastructure. On riots, Biden suggested that Trump pours gas on the fire and makes things worse. And that's exactly what he says that Kellyanne Conway said about the riots, saying that the riots were actually a good thing for Trump's election cause. Trump denied this. So I looked at the actual quote, and I didn't just look up the actual quote, I looked at the actual video in context, because context is key in politics and debates, except context is almost always lost. The exact quote for reference was from August 27th when Kellyanne Conway said, quote, "The more chaos and anarchy and vandalism and violence reigns, the better it is for the very clear choice on who's best on public safety and law and order." However, in context, because she did say this, but in context, she was responding to a rhetorical question someone asked protesters. Somebody asked protesters going, "Are you protesters trying to get Trump reelected?" And that's what Kellyanne Conway was responding to. But nobody brings up that context anymore. Trump did argue that drug prices will be coming down 80 to 90%, though it seems Trump will actually have to wait for Congress to help him do this, which this Congress gets nothing done, so that's very unlikely. So this remains one of Trump's promises, but drug prices realistically haven't nudged it down significantly since Trump took office, because again, we need Congress to help do that. There was a big debate on who brought more manufacturing back. Donald Trump says that Obama and Biden were slow, that their recovery was one of the slowest ever, and instead says that Trump is a hero of manufacturing. Well, the easiest thing to do here is just to look at the actual chart to see what actually happened with manufacturing jobs. Manufacturing jobs have been on a steady decline since about the mid-90s. They declined through 2004, and then they substantially declined through 2008 during the recession, and they've never really fully recovered since then. If we zoom in a little bit more here, we'll see that slowish but somewhat sustained recovery, and when Trump took office, you kind of saw that similar course of recovery. Obviously, during the pandemic, we saw manufacturing grind to a halt, and that's where we're seeing somewhat of this V-shaped recovery at the bottom in manufacturing jobs. Now, for a little bit more insight, I think it's helpful to see that currently, according to Siena College, 56% of voters say that we should wait to fill the Supreme Court seat. That's pretty close to 50-50. Whereas 72% of voters say that an additional $2 trillion stimulus package is appropriate, and only 9% believe the government has done too much. According to Pew Research, 56% of people, again, relatively close to 50-50, believe that Trump should release his tax returns. On mail-in voting, according to the University of Maryland, 73% of Americans support universal mail-in voting. Now, here are the things that I really wish we would have heard more about, but again, we heard more mudslinging than anything else. I wanted to know more about the economy. What exact measures is Biden planning to take? Is he planning on getting rid of the 1031 tax deferred exchange in real estate? Is Biden actually going to raise taxes on people making $400,000 or more and nobody below that? Or is there really going to be a plan to tax people's stock transactions, which would tax people making less than that amount? Is there really a plan to tax people making over $100,000 with more payroll taxes? Or potentially, what about Mrs. Harris's Medicare for All plan, where she wants to tax individuals making over $100,000 about 4% on anything over $100,000 to pay for Medicare for All. Now, Biden has not technically picked up Harris's plan for Medicare for All yet and that 4% tax, but he has talked about eliminating some deductions in real estate, eliminating the stepped up tax basis, the 1031 exchange, and taxing people making over $138,000 with higher payroll taxes. Trump. I would like to know if Trump would support more stimulus prior to the election, and what will after the election look like? Is Trump going to send checks right before the election and then that's it? Good luck? Like, what if we don't recover for another year and we need more support? On healthcare, are the candidates going to leave the Obamacare exchanges or get rid of them and improve them? And how does poverty affect racial tensions that we're seeing, and what are the candidates' plans for poverty? And will there be more support for children to have better access to broadband and computers to help with distance learning? There's nothing like a 5-year-old who has an attention span of a 2-year-old trying to do distance learning, and then the computer gives you a nice fat pinwheel. Not that that's a personal problem. A lot of very real questions for our country were not addressed in debate number 1. Of course, there will be other debates, but unfortunately, there was too much bickering and mudslinging in debate number 1 for me to be optimistic about the future debates. I want to know what questions you wanted answered. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts were. And folks, thank you for watching this. If you've liked this perspective, please consider sharing it and subscribing. Get your life insurance, get your 2 free stocks with Webull. And folks, we'll see you in the next video.